Dragons Dogma Dose, the game that lets you climb cyclopses and dragons and ogres and stuff. Just have your pawn yell at you, wolves hunt in packs, for like the 47th freaking time. It's been a year or a bit longer depending on when you're watching this since the game released, and I have a few thoughts overall. Like, was the game worth it? Does it still hold up? And is there still hope for a Dark Arisen style expansion that would expand on the experience even more? Or has Monster Hunter Wilds pretty much just stolen the plot with Capcom and their releases? And when Dragons Dogma 2 was first announced, the gaming world collectively lost its mind. After years of waiting, we finally had a sequel to the cult classic and a very niche and weird game that gave us pawns, monster climbing, and the eternal wisdom of
The master works all, you can't go wrong.
the hype was real with Dragons Dogma 1 and Dark Arisen after that. And coming up to Dragons Dogma 2, it finally got the attention it so rightfully deserved. But when the game finally dropped, it was, well, a mixed bag. Some people loved it, some people hated it, and some people were just overall confused as to why their pawn was doing the most random shit at the most random, inopportune moment. I was a bit on the fence, to be very honest. At first, the game looked absolutely awesome on release. Like, the gameplay looked like what I was expecting from a Dragon's Dogma game, but the performance was a jankathon. It was so janky and so buggy that I decided not to pull the trigger, not to buy the game on day one, and waited. And I waited for like 5 or 6 months, maybe, eagerly at that. But then it was on sale on GG Deals for like 40% off, and I pulled it. I pulled the trigger. I pulled it so hard that I really enjoyed the game. Look, when I picked it up afterwards, it was still a charming but a buggy mess, but I overall loved it. I really did enjoy it. It was one of my favorite games of the year up until I played Armored Core 6, that is. But that's a whole other story, to be honest. But now, after a year of reflection and going back to play it some more, man, it's still charming as hell. But it is still, look, let's get into this. Let's start off with the good stuff, of course, man, because there's a lot to love here. Because first off, the combat, oh my goodness gracious, great balls of fire. The combat is just, it's one of the better combat systems in modern day gaming, a period. Fight me on this. No, I'm just kidding, don't fight me on this. There's nothing quite like stabbing a dragon in the freaking eye hole while your pawns cheer you on, or accidentally just jump off a cliff or do some random shit. The class system is still as fun as ever, and the monster climbing, look, is just iconic. It's like Shadow of the Colossus means freaking Smackdown or something like that. Then there's the world. It's big, it's beautiful, it's just full of surprises. There's so many hidden nooks and crannies, hidden caves that you can go into, that you'll find a freaking Medusa or a freaking Minotaur or some shit like that, where it's like the craziest experience ever, where you're in a dark cave, your lantern might run out of oil, and a freaking Minotaur might run through some rocks on your goofy ass, trying to just sit there, light the freaking candle on fire. Like, sure, there might be some jank in the outside world, and you might get lost for hours because the fast traveling has been made that much more difficult, and your health system is what it is in the outside world unless you go and camp that often. It's still very charming. The world is very immersive, and everything you find in the world felt like you actually discovered them instead of just map markers that you'll see from a mile away just to tick them off, you know. The pawn system is still one of the more unique things in gaming because they're so cool. They really, their comments are witty, their comments, they do get a bit repetitive in all honesty, but they are fun, they are super engaging, and I just love the pawn system in general because you get to make your custom guy, you get to recruit custom characters that other people have made, and it's just awesome in general because they do enhance the experience a lot. But let's not talk about only the good stuff, because there's also some not so good stuff in the game, and I gotta be very honest with that. Subscribe. Oh man. Look, the performance of the game, it's still rough, I'll be very honest. Some parts of this game are still very janky. There's this overall bugginess in the game that I don't think can ever be fixed because it is a physics-based engine. So if things are random, some things are very random that might happen around you or might not happen. You might be very lucky in not having some of these bugs, like
you're climbing a monster and you run out of stamina, but the monster jumps at that exact time, so you go freaking flying into the air Like some freaking giant just smacked you in Skyrim.
And it's just crazy. There's also repetition. I mean, some of these things are part of the charm, part of the experience. A repetition, look, I love smacking goblins in the face hole as much as the next arisen out there. But after like the 500th group of goblins or different colored coyotes or wolves, I think you can answer that for yourself. It gets a bit repetitive. Fighting the same griffin over and over again or the same ogres, it does get a bit repetitive. I'm not saying it's not fun, because the randomness of it all tends to kind of enhance the experience, because a lot of shit can happen and a lot of shit can just change on a whim. I hope I'm saying that correctly. But overall, there is a bunch of repetition in the game because enemy variety is still an issue. They haven't fixed that. The questing in the game, the quests are very similar. It's kind of go there, talk to this person, run back, talk to that person, kill someone in the middle. The story is still overall, the story is what it is. Look, I talked about it in my previous videos. The story is hot ass. It is garbagios. It is terrible. The problem is it's overly political than I'm used to in a Dragons Dogma type of game where, look, there's dragons and there is a dogma. Mix those, make me fight dragons. But in the whole playthrough, you only fight one mandatory dragon if you choose so. And yeah, that's an issue. I mean, Dragons Dogma, it is a singular Dragons Dogma. The good news is that Capcom has been pretty solid with updates. They fixed some bugs, added some quality of life features like stamina management. You don't lose your stamina when you're running in safe areas now, so I think that's a game changer, if any. And they've given us more reasons to yell at our pawns in general. Man, it's not perfect, but it's definitely, hands down, the game runs better than it did at launch. Man, the game has been updated a bunch since then, and they've changed some things around. I mean, if you didn't like the original release and the core, then you're not gonna like it now. They haven't changed it like they did No Man's Sky or Cyberpunk or games like that, but they've just enhanced and fixed the base game experience, where now, like I said, man, the stamina stuff is fixed mostly. You still lose your stamina quite fast, and the weight management, you know, encumbrance systems in games, I could go on for hours about that. I will be going on for hours on a separate podcast episode that I will be releasing in the coming weeks, so if you haven't tuned yet, you know, subscribe. But in any case, look, I'm rambling. Let's get into the big elephant in the room, and that's Monster Hunter Wilds. Look, that game's release was absolutely massive, not just for the company, but in gaming in general, where the game surpassed the expectations of sales numbers tenfold, and that really shifts Capcom's focus away from Dragon's Dogma even more onto Monster Hunter Wilds now, and that might be an issue for fans of Dragon's Dogma, of course. And knowing Monster Hunter as a series, they're going to be releasing DLC, event quests, all of that good stuff years later after release. So does that leave a slight chance for a Dark Arisen style expansion for Dragon's Dogma that might enhance the experience and potentially save it for some? I'd like to think so, honestly. I mean, let's be real, Dark Arisen was a game changer for the first Dragon's Dogma. It added a ton of new content, fixed a lot of issues, and gave us Bitter Black Isle, which is still one of the best dungeon crawls in gaming history. A similar expansion for DD2 could take an already great game and make it legendary, especially with Dragon's Dogma 2 being a game that oh so desperately deserves one of these Dark Arisen style expansions that just enhance the experience. Because imagine more enemy variety, better questing in general, and just new areas to explore, new weapons, new armor, all of that good stuff, even new classes. Why not? My biggest hope is still a second ability wheel for your class. I feel like, because I used the Wayfarer, the guy who uses two classes. Oh man, I don't even want to get into that, honestly. Let me have a second ability wheel. That's all I'm gonna say. At the end of the day, look, Dragon's Dogma 2 isn't perfect, but it's really good. It's a very charming game. It's a worthwhile experience for those willing to give it the time of day. I know it's not gonna gel with a lot of people. Some people will look at that game and think, not for me, because of the hardcore-ish elements in the game and just weird design choices. Look, it's a Japanese company, and if you've played a Japanese RPG before, you know design choices, weird choices, mechanics, they all kind of make for a very charming experience overall. But I love Dragon's Dogma 2, and now is probably the best time to jump into it a year later, because first of all, you can get it for dirt cheap on GG Deals or someplace like that. If you're on PC, of course. On console, you might still get it for dirt cheap somewhere. Why not? Like, look for it. You probably find it on a good price, because the game is for the price. Like, if you're saying you're paying half price for that game, it's like 50 to 60 hours of pure fun if you give it the time of day. It's got its jank, yes, but comparing back to a year ago when the game first dropped, man, like I said, now is the perfect time to jump into it because the game runs overall a lot smoother. There's way less crashes, way less bugginess overall. Again, the physics engine makes for an experience and a half. As who knows, they might drop a Dark Arisen style expansion a year and a half later, because gaming, it works like that nowadays. With all the resources required for a DLC and the time it takes to make a product, I wouldn't be surprised if the DLC drops a year and a half or even 2 years after release, or even tomorrow. Who knows when you're watching this? Who knows? Maybe it's even out and I just look dumb right now. But in any case, what the f do I know, man? I'm just a random gamer on the internet who really enjoyed their time playing Dragons Dogma 2 and would think that now, especially a year later, would be the perfect time for you, my broski, to jump into the game. So let me know in the comments down below, man. Did you play this game? Did you enjoy it? If you didn't, why? Let me know, man. Any and all comments take this video a long ass way to the greatness of the tubes. In the meanwhile, while we wait for that ever so elusive expansion to drop, check out this video where I talk about the difficulty of Monster Hunter Wilds, as well as this video where I talk about the solo experience of the game. So man, hope you have a great day wherever you're from, whichever time of day you watch this at. Enjoy the meme in the outro and keep on trucking, my dudes. Peace.